That's what it is. Sunday and Sunday. How about that for a big win for the Denver Broncos, 18-12 over the New England Patriots. It's week 6 recap here on the Audible. That's right, the footballguys.com podcast. Cecil, Lammey, and Sigmund Bloom. And Broncos with a bunch of field goals, not a bunch of touchdowns, and some bad decisions by Drew Lock, who goes 10 of 24 in his return, 189 yards, no touchdowns, 2 INTs. But Bloom, it would have been helped out had Deshaun Hamilton probably caught a touchdown. Albert Okwuegbunam was targeted 4 times in the end zone and didn't come down with a single touchdown. But you see 6 targets total, 2 for 45. Yeah, the 2 he caught weren't the ones in the end zone. Tim Patrick puts it all on the line, 4 for 101. Jerry Jeudy just not connecting, not that much involved, really. 2 for 32 in this game. Philip Lindsay's return, just like Drew Lock's return, saw him go 23 for 101. Kind of be the Energizer Bunny for this offense. What's interesting to note is he had 23 carries, no receptions, not even a target for Philip Lindsay. So Drew Lock's back, Lindsay's back. They get a win. It's just kind of ugly. And then with the lead in the fourth quarter, Drew Lock tries to go a bomb to Tim Patrick down the middle, throws a second pick. The first pick, I think, was tipped. Or no. It was, again, to Tim Patrick, but he threw a stop route, and Patrick was running the go. They weren't on the same page, so whatever. That pick, forgivable. The second pick, not forgivable. But lessons learned today for fantasy GMs and for the Denver Broncos.
A quality win. I mean, anytime you win in New England over a quarterback like Cam Newton, a quality win, a team win. And see, I think something that you've seen through the Vic Fangio era is no matter what the record is, no matter what the team's momentum is coming into a game, they always play with a lot of fight. And that's what we saw. And you could see a conservative game plan, which I suppose is called for. It worked. And the idea was just don't turn the ball over. And it might have been a comfortable win if he hadn't. They wouldn't have had to sweat it out at the end. Drew Lock, continue to see where he's at in his progress, which is, not exactly about to turn the corner. But you have Tim Patrick and his great fight, again, on those deep balls. As you mentioned, Jerry Jeudy, this is kind of an airplane stuck in the hangar. We're not seeing him establish chemistry with any of the 3 quarterbacks. We're not seeing him make those impact plays. He just lacks that edge or that focus when his number is called to think that it's going to turn around. The main thing that stood out here, we've talked about this every time we brought up Albert Okwuegbunam. Did you like hearing the announcer struggle with that one, by the way?
Oh, my God. I complained about that on Twitter multiple times. Like, it's Okwuegbunam. Okwuegbunam.
Well, just do your job.
Breida. I mispronounce Breida, but I can get Okwuegbunam. Like, come on, Trent Green. And he called Michael Ojemudia like OJ Medea. He called Dalton Risner of 9 Inch Nails. Yeah. And then, he said Justin, Phillips instead of Justin Simmons. I was like, anyway.
I swear there was one. Yeah, Okwuegbunam. And I swear there was one time that he said Albert I don't even know what to say, so I'm just going to mumble. But the connection, you saw almost every drive early on, a red zone target, a target where he's throwing it up and letting his guy Alberto make a play. And there was one where he caught him up the seam. I think he got 4 end zone targets, none of them touchdowns, but sometimes these very simple narratives do carry over. That was his favorite guy at Mizzou in the red zone and the end zone, and it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of that. And then Philip Lindsay, and what do we know about Philip Lindsay? I mean, he's going to run with max effort, max intensity every time you call his number, and he did enough in this game. And also, I think that it has some psychological effect that it came in a win, and a big win, and the best win of the year, that Lindsay was the guy keeping the offense on schedule. So we'll see when Melvin Gordon does come back next week with the strep throat, if that changes how this workload. Throat. Yeah. Very nice. If that changes how this backfield is divvied up. But it's a nice win. And see, if you're 2-3, then you're not out of anything. And it's something to build on, although I think this win probably belongs to the defense more than the offense.
Yeah, it belongs to the defense because they were able to frustrate Cam Newton. Their longest play of the day was the 22-yarder razzle-dazzle that Julian Edelman threw to James White. They just don't, N'Keal Harry at the end, kind of slips or whatever on one of his 2 targets, doesn't continue the drive on a 4th down in the, near the red zone where they could have won that game. So, I mean, N'Keal Harry's terrible. Ryan Izzo gets bent over, basically bent backwards, and so he's banged up. You're not starting him anyway. James White, 8 for 65 as a receiver, 4 for 8 as a runner. Cam Newton got a rushing touchdown, of course, threw a couple of picks, 157 yards. But this is the problem with this team. If they can't run and screen past you to death, Bloom, they can't win.
No, and it almost felt like Josh McDaniels was conceding something whenever Julian Edelman, not just once but twice, ran a play as the quarterback and looked reasonably sharp. Remember, former college quarterback, I think Kent State.
Yes. And didn't this kind of seem, Bloom, a little bit like New England? Because don't blame the lack of practice. They practiced 2 days and 14 days.
Sure.
Tennessee kicked the crap out of Buffalo practicing like once, whatever. Didn't it seem like this was one of those, we're going to see you later in the year, so we're not going to show you everything? But that isn't actually going to happen because the Broncos aren't going anywhere. This is just all the Patriots have, and it's not much.
Yeah, exactly. This is the A offense, really, because it wasn't there. There were interceptions. There was a Ryan Izzo fumble. The offense was just stalling out. The running game, you would think with Cam Newton, you're going to be able to create more advantages in the running game, but that wasn't there. We also saw Damian Harris fade into the background. You did get James White in those catches in PPR leagues, but that was more, I think, again, a sign of the struggle of the offense. Okay, well, if the offense is going to continue to struggle, then James White can continue to rack up those catches. Julian Edelman's not. Again, he served the offense best as a quarterback in this one. He looks old. I mean, he just looks like a guy with the injuries and the mileage and everything is piled up. He looked good early in the season, and you do see him on the injury report every week. So it makes you wonder. And what else is there? Demir Bird getting some deep targets. N'Keal Harry isn't doing anything really in this offense. You had one scramble. Basically, the only time the defense really cracked was a scramble that set up Cam getting a touchdown, I think, on 4th down. So even there, the defense was making it hard on New England. And now we have a 2-3 New England, Cease. And now we have a New England that going into any game, unless it's like the Jets or Washington or something like that, Jacksonville, unless it's a bottom tier team, now it doesn't feel like a given. And we've seen this in the past from Cam, where there are games where the offense isn't really connecting. And he's had some poor supporting casts in his time. But again, hats off to Denver's defense. But this just felt like one where in the Seattle game, you thought, well, hey, Cam's going to up the amperage, the voltage. I'm making up words. I'm not an electrician. He's going to make this offense be able to hang with someone like Russell Wilson. And now you can't hang with Drew Lock.
Yeah. Eesh. Okay. Let's move on to Steelers and Browns. It's a Steelers and Broncos show, Bloom.
Yeah.
A special 38-7, the final score. The Steelers send that message. Baltimore had a message received today. We'll get to that a little bit later. But 38-7, the Browns fall. And the way they do that is Baker Mayfield stumbling, rumbling, bumbling. 10 for 18, 119 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 INTs, including that pick 6. Minka, it's beautiful.
Yes.
Where's my Minka jersey? Rashard Higgins gets the 1 touchdown. Maybe you had him in as a flex. Maybe. You had Kareem Hunt in. He got 13 for 40 on the ground and then 2 for 17 as a receiver. You had ODB in, 2 for 25. Jarvis Landry in, 3 for 40. Austin Hooper, 5 for 52. So just not a lot here. They couldn't get much going. And as I said, Bloom, Baker the baby maker, fumbling, bumbling, stumbling, and throwing picks.
Yeah. It was a rough day. I mean, the most important thing to unlock this game, if you were to forecast it correctly, was Baker Mayfield coming in banged up. And there was a point that Cecil was like, Rocky, throw the damn towel. Just get him out of there. It was bad. It was bad for him physically, bad for him mentally, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. No, he's not going to get replaced. The team is still 4-2. That's the thing about this game, right? Cleveland doesn't win in Pittsburgh. I remember Cease as a kid. I probably told this story on the show a few times. In the 80s, I think it was, Cleveland, I want to say they'd never won in Three River Stadium. And they actually had some witches, and as we talk about Cease, witches, any kind of magic, any kind of juju can be good or bad. But they were bringing some dirt from Cleveland and casting some spells. That's how mystical it got, Cleveland's inability to win in Pittsburgh. And they also had never beaten Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh, but this team was starting to roll. And you had some things that they had established, offensive line play, running game. None of that got going. It was a rough day for Kareem Hunt. You knew going in there was potentially be a rough day for Kareem Hunt, but it was a really rough day for him. They didn't get him going as a receiver. They didn't get anything going downfield passing to Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry. Neither of them were throwing passes successfully. You did see Austin Hooper. You expected Hooper as the mid-range, short-range struggle target to do okay. That's what he did. The only touchdown to Rashard Higgins. Always got to mention those Colorado State receivers. An easy one, kind of in the garbage time of the first half. The Steelers were already up, I think, 24-0. The Steelers were. This was easily in hand, and that's the thing about the Browns that's disheartening. And it is Baker Mayfield hurt, but it was a whole team collapse, a whole team loss. And you want to see where you measure up against the Steelers right now. It's where you measure up against the Ravens. So it's 4-2, but the 2 shows them just how far they have to go to be a real contender.
It shows you how far the Steelers can go when their defense leads the way and they're like, nah, let's just run the ball. Let's get 3 rushing touchdowns and have Ben throw it 22 times for 162 yards and a touchdown. Now the touchdown goes to James Washington. Here's the thing, Bloom, and we all need to do this. And I've thought this before about Ben. When he does that pump fake, and it like nearly leaves his hand, just enjoy those. We may not get to see it for very much longer, so I'm always going to remember, when we're 90 and we're doing this show, Bloom, and I'll be like, remember Ben and the pump fake and the big fat face and the broken nose and so pump fake to James Washington, touchdown Steelers, and then 3 rushing touchdowns, 20 for 101, James Conner. Benny Snell takes over late, gets a rushing touchdown. Chase Claypool had a rushing touchdown in addition to 4 for 74 as a receiver on 4 targets, by the way. Juju Smith-Schuster, 2 for 6. So there's that. Hey, what about starting Eric Ebron, 2 for 9? It's never a good idea, ever. But it's a good idea when the Steelers get a win.
Cease, when we're 90 and we're doing this show, we're just going to live in the past.
Oh, yeah.
We're not, when it's a Steelers game, we're not even going to recap the game that happened. We're just going to talk about Ben Roethlisberger had the ball and it would never even leave his hand. And this is the past to live in, a game like today. This is the past you want to live in. It was just too easy. So, don't get too upset about the Roethlisberger line. Ebron, I don't think, was giving us anything that was that exciting to begin with. You do get upset about Juju. I mean, it's just he's not... See, as a Steelers fan, looking at this team, undefeated team, you feel like, hey, there'll still be a time, there'll still be a game when Juju, whether it be on extended plays or a matchup, will still make an impact. It's just not there. The matchup next week against Tennessee is a great matchup as far as tactically watching how these teams match up against each other. And for Juju, it's a good matchup. And at that point, if he doesn't do it there, we're not saying shut him down. But I understand if at this point you're saying, I'm leaving him in until he goes off on my bench because it is the Chase Claypool show. And see, sometimes, and I know I defer to Ed Bouchette, and Ed Bouchette said this is going to be a fantasy nightmare, week to week once Johnson's healthy. But watching this, Claypool gets tackled inside the 5 twice. And you see him making those plays, and I almost can't believe it. It's the same thing as Le'Veon Bell's second year sees. Watching what Le'Veon Bell did as a dual threat, watching what he did with his hesitant style and how physically gifted he was and how his style meshed with his physical abilities. I almost had to rub my eyes, partially because I was wrong, and I was wrong about Chase Claypool. I was wrong about him. And what you see with Chase Claypool, I think that we didn't see even as much as you saw today or last week at Notre Dame is he knows he's the best athlete on the field. He knows that nobody can hang with him, and he's really playing that way. And it's fit, it's working. Wow. Kevin Colbert. I'm not speaking about names and things that we should just enjoy. See, it'll be Omar Khan. The Steelers have an excellent guy that's going to take over the stewardship of this organization, and Omar Khan. But Kevin Colbert and what they've been able to do. Claypool scores on the end around, could have easily had 2 other touchdowns as a receiver. James Washington gets one on that pump fake. Benny Snell gets one in garbage time as a short yardage runner. But James Conner look after that first week, which just now seems bizarre. James Conner's everything you hoped he would be. Still not gifted, not making ooh and ah plays, but just grinding down the defense and against defenses that are concerned with this passing game. It's there for him, and he's getting it. So we'll see, Cease. This is now, I think, that moment in the NFL consciousness, in the NFL media when all eyes are on the Steelers, and everyone's going to be talking about the Steelers as a Super Bowl favorite, and everyone's going to be talking about them. So we know this is a team that reads its own press clippings. We know this is a team that can get overconfident, although you can't go in overconfident to Nashville against those Titans. Really looking forward to that one.
I was looking forward to the Bengals winning today over the Colts. Sorry, Colts fans. I mean, you just had this lead, 14-0 in the first quarter. Now 21 second quarter points from the Colts, but you had a lead by the Bengals and they let it slip away. We got Joe Mixon banged up. Bloom, give us the latest there before he's out. 18 for 54 rushing touchdown, 2 for 15 as a receiver. You had a rushing touchdown from Gio Bernard, 8 for 15 and 1. And then 3 for 13 as a receiver. You had a rushing touchdown from Joe Burrow, who threw for 313 yards, no touchdowns, 1 INT. T. Higgins was 6 for 125. AJ Green, back, 8 for 96. Tyler Boyd, 5 for 54. And, well, there you go. Bengals fall short 31-27 to the Colts, Bloom, but they had it. They just couldn't hold on to it.
21-0. I think they pointed out on the Red Zone channel, there's been a 16-point comeback in every week this year. This keeps that streak going. Something that's probably going to haunt Joe Burrow. And from a fantasy standpoint, Burrow, against what looked like a tough defense coming into this game, had a good fantasy result. And that's something we take away from this, by the way. So, okay, Indianapolis made Kirk Cousins look bad. More on that later. They beat up on the Jets. They made Nick Foles look bad, but are they a good defense? I don't know. Are they a defense that makes us shy away from playing players against them? I'm not sure. Joe Mixon, early in this game, first Giovanni Bernard vultures touchdown. Then Mixon, kind of a drop, kind of a good play by the defender. It was there. And then Burrow gets his sneak. Then Mixon gets a touchdown. Then Mixon leaves with a foot injury, but comes back. So I think Mixon has established his bona fides, someone that we're going to leave in our lineup every week. It could have been a much bigger day for him. T. Higgins showing he's a downfield threat. Not as much for Tyler Boyd because, the return of AJ Green. Hey, making contributions. Okay, maybe we were a little premature to say shut him down. I don't know if we'll go right back and trust him after he faces a Cleveland team that he didn't do much against earlier this year. But at least he's still relevant. At least he's still playing with some pride and not adding to the reel of tape where you're looking at him and thinking, I remember when you were great. I remember when you were beautiful. We remember the Bengals' high points as we go down memory road, Cecil. Those Super Bowls against the Niners, that little bit against the Steelers before Kimo Van Olhoffen did what he did. It's going to be a while until we get back to more glory days. That's what we're learning about this Bengals team and Joe Burrow. And at least for an afternoon, it was kind of glorious for Phillip Rivers?
Kind of. And maybe that's part of the reason why I just love Joe Burrow, right, Bloom? But there's also part of me that's like, do we really need to see Phillip Rivers? Because early in the game, what was he like? 11 for 13 for 90 yards or something? I'm like, I don't need to see Phillip Rivers attack with Trey Burton. Like, oh, God. And there's part of me that probably wants to see Jacoby Brissett. But at the end of the day, 371, 3 touchdowns, 1 INT. So he came to life with Marcus Johnson, 5 for 108. Trey Burton did score a touchdown, 4 for 58 and a touch. Zach Pascal, 4 for 54 and a touch. Jack Doyle, 3 for 29 and a touch, and was so angry at the football after he scored. Jonathan Taylor, 4 for 55 as a receiver, and then 12 for 60 as a runner. It was Trey Burton with a rushing touchdown as well. So if you just happen to stumble into Trey Burton in your lineup, you're happy there. If you had T.Y. Hilton in, you're not happy. 1 for 11. So Rivers goes 371, and then Hilton goes 1 for 11 on 5 targets. So let's talk about these Colts and how they had to pull it out against, hey, we all cheering for Cincinnati. Let's not be awful, but their defense is terrible. And the Colts had to pull it out against a terrible defense.
Yeah, the Colts team, again, we're not impressed. They are 4-2 going into their bye. So, I mean, you'll take it. And Phillip Rivers, Cecil, you look at this one. Okay, 21-0. And no, I would not recommend Phillip Rivers to anybody in any fantasy league today. So I'm sorry if I steered you away from Phillip Rivers. We just didn't get the memo that they were going to go down 21-0 and he was going to have to throw the ball 40 plus times. That's not what they want. Even watching this game, he might have been efficient at times. Every one of the touchdowns were amazing efforts by the players catching the touchdowns. It wasn't like Phillip Rivers made anything easy for his guys. T.Y. Hilton, too, and this what's really frustrating. T.Y. Hilton, in a big day for the passing game, does nothing. Had one touchdown wiped off the board by penalty, but it's not there. And without Mo Alley Cox, of course it's tight end day. Of course. Doyle fumbling early, atoning with that touchdown. Burton runs one in as the option quarterback and then makes a sprawling catch for another one. And you otherwise have Marcus Johnson, speedster, former Eagle, making plays. Zach Pascal had a beautiful body control touchdown. So not necessarily he's in lineups, but him contributing there. And Jonathan Taylor was more involved in the passing game. So, you didn't get a rushing touchdown from him, but you got more like a week one passing game contribution from him. And Indianapolis gets the win. Coming out of the bye, they get Detroit, and then you're going to see them play Baltimore, Tennessee, Green Bay, Tennessee. We'll know at the end of that what's up with this team. Houston, Vegas, Houston, Pittsburgh. So no breathers there, Cease. No breaks for this Colts team. No Cincinnati Bengals on the schedule for them in the second half of the year.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about a battle of the cats. Cat fight. Lions and Jaguars. 34-16 is the final score. Lions get the win. Not terribly surprising, Bloom, but Matthew Stafford, 223, one up and one down, one TD, one INT. It was Kenny Golladay with 4 for 105. Dammy Amendola, 2 for 31. It's TJ Hawkinson getting that one receiving touchdown. Thank you very much. And DeAndre Swift's day, 14 for 116. 2 rushing touchdowns for Swift, also 3 for 7 as a receiver. Adrian Peterson with a rushing touchdown, 15 for 40 and a touch there. And not much else from anybody like Marvin Jones Jr. Why are you starting him? 2 for 8, but a big win and one where you saw Swift go off.
Yeah, you did. Matt Patricia's job may be on the line in this one. So they saved his job. And again, they're 2-3 now. And as was pointed out, this was their first game against a team with a losing record. So, the schedule can play tricks when we're trying to figure out who's a good team, who's not a good team. At least they were the better team on the field. When you're better than Jacksonville, even decisively better, I don't know if that means you're a good team. If you played Matt Stafford, you didn't get much. It was good process, bad results. The offensive touchdowns were there, but 3 of them went to running backs. DeAndre Swift looked good. He had the long play. He scored a couple of times. And it was still a split backfield, but it's clear who gives them more capabilities when they're on the field. I don't think you're going to see Swift turn into like a 20 or 25 touch a game guy, probably. But I think that at least in these kinds of matchups, you're excited and you're not questioning whether to play him now. Next week they get Atlanta. Yeah, you're fine to wait for DeAndre Swift to get into your lineup there. Kenny Golladay had a solid day. Also drew a pass interference in the end zone. Like you said about Marvin Jones, this might have been that last gasp. Watch him have a 3 or 4 touchdown game because that's what he does. But we're not going to try to time it if it's not going to come against a team like Jacksonville. Again, Atlanta up next week. Depending on bias, maybe you get pulled back in. TJ Hawkinson had one cease where he was open in the end zone, and the fullback who was standing at the goal line broke it up. I think he thought it was intended for him. No, if you're the fullback, it's rarely intended for you.
It's never intended for you.
Yeah, unless it's John Gruden, Spider TY banana. But you do see him getting the touchdown on the next play. So Hawkinson's still not a mainstay in this passing game, but doing enough that you're not getting hurt for putting him in the lineup. And then again, going to Atlanta, who had a pretty impressive day. We'll talk about that. They could pull the 3-3. And see, so we start to look now as things coalesce on both sides, on both conferences. You can identify teams now that look like playoff teams, right? Baltimore, right. Pittsburgh, Tennessee, etc. On the NFC side, Green Bay, Seattle, etc. There's a few teams. I guess there's not as many on the NFC side, which is precisely why Detroit, maybe keeping Matt Patricia, you get a 9-7 playoff berth, a triumphant year.
How about the Jaguars triumphant when they take Trevor Lawrence?
Right.
Gardner Minshew, he's scrappy. God bless him, but 243, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. And on a day where he had a rushing touchdown too. And on a day when James Robinson goes 12 for 29, you're like, oh my God. And they're behind and they got to pass. Robinson had the receiving touchdown, 4 for 24. Keelan Cole, huge day, 6 for 143. DJ Chark, 7 catches, only 45 yards, but 7 catches. You'll take that in PPR leagues. And Visca, 3 for 10. So not much there. James O'Shaughnessy, hey, I need a filler. Nope.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Just isn't there. It's just not clicking outside of Keelan Cole, DJ Chark, and James Robinson. And once in a while, Visca. Just not relying on your Jaguars this year, of course.
No. See, remember like a month and a half ago when this was a fun team to watch, a fun story? Gardner Minshew was a fun story. Jay Gruden's offense.
He's got a mullet. He's funny.
And it was good. And even for fantasy, it's still good. But you know the drill. It was Blake Bortles back in the day. Okay, when the team is bad and they have to pass a lot. Yep. Okay, Gardner Minshew had a good fantasy game or a good enough fantasy game. But this one comes from John Shipley, one of my favorite beat writers, via Eric Stoner. Love you, Eric. They asked DJ Chark Cease, what did the Lions defense do to limit the wide receivers? He said, I felt like we were open. Yeah. So maybe the team, receivers not too happy with Gardner Minshew. Maybe this honeymoon is over. And see, we saw this last year. Minshew started out strong, faded. Foles came in and was terrible, puked over himself. Then Minshew came in and wasn't much better. And maybe that's just happening faster this year. You're going to see Jake Luton or Lutton. I'm sorry, this is my Breida, right? I don't know. I just know that this was a game when it just felt like you went a 3-horse race. We got Washington, we got Jacksonville, we got the Jets. Who's going to get Trevor Lawrence? And whoever you have number 2 on your board, I still think it's Trevor Lawrence. And the next guys might be fine, but you really want Trevor Lawrence. So we'll see. Geographically, it would kind of make sense for him to stay there. James Robinson did get the touchdown in garbage time, so thank your lucky stars for that. Keelan Cole was making plays downfield multiple times in this game, so you're seeing him emerge. You like seeing that with him going into contract year. Chark more short targets, but enough targets that he remains viable in PPR leagues. Like you said, it was Laviska Shenault left aside. Tyler Eifert had more issues with his neck, but James O'Shaughnessy didn't do much. And here we go. We've got Jacksonville. They're going to make enough passing game production, and James Robinson's doing enough to keep us interested. But mostly, we want to play the team playing against them that week, next week, the Chargers, Justin Herbert. So get your Chargers in the lineup in week 7.
Well, Bloom, it is October 18th. That means today, it's actually 5 years since we've been in 2020. So that meme's floating around. John says, that a Don't Cross the Moat shirt, Bloom?
26 shirts, at 26 shirts. Arthur Moats, Bill, and then Steeler, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Now, there's some games where you're catching up on them, Bloom. You're like, 14-0 Tennessee. Okay, that sounds about right? Okay, and here we go again. And then the Texans fight back, and, I love Deshaun Watson. I don't hide it ever, and I hated Bill O'Brien, whatever. And I just love the fight that they have with Romeo, man. So when the Texans marched back and took this to overtime, I was like, please, football gods, let Houston be rewarded with this big, hard-fought win, because they were down 14-0 in the first quarter. They fight back, and they lose the coin. You heard Deshaun Watson to the coin toss. He was like, they lost the coin toss, and Derrick Henry, rumble, bumble, and 42-36, the final score. Tennessee, one of those teams, Bloom. Unlike the NFC, in the AFC, you've got some teams, and Tennessee is near the top of that list. 42-36, the final score. Texans, Deshaun Watson goes 4 touchdowns, 335 through the air. Will Fuller, 6 for 123 and a touch. Darren Fells, 6 for 85 and a touch. Brandon Cooks, 9 for 68 and a touch. Randall Cobb, 3 for 17 and a touch there as well. David Johnson, 19 for 57 on the ground with 1 rushing touchdown and a catch for 12 yards. We're going to use Duke Johnson more. 4 for 9, 1 for 2 as a receiver. Whatever is whatever. I like the heart in fighting back, because this team could have easily laid down to a superior Tennessee team that's got the toughness, that's got the edge, but Houston had some fight.
Just a typical AFC South shootout tangle. I mean, we see teams in the AFC South create game scripts like this every year, so not that surprising. Like you said, maybe a little surprising that Tennessee wasn't able to put away Houston. Houston putting up a lot of fight here. That being said, so some things hovering in the background. Will Cal McNair have a fire sale? Some bad contracts, though, that Bill O'Brien left him with. Yeah. But now when you lose this game, even though it shows you, hey, Tennessee, even though they're the lead horse in the division, you're pretty much neck and neck with them when you play on the same field. Is it too much to overcome this year? Something to look at there. The offense was also pretty bad in the first half. They even called a Randall Cobb pass in the red zone. Then they really came alive in the second half. So we know it's not just Jacksonville. Some of it is Bill O'Brien lifting his thumb and this offense getting out from under it. Romeo, like he said, Cease, going for it on fourth down, going for 2. And I don't know what the analytics will say about that. Up 7. And it was tipped away. Randall Cobb was open in the end zone. If they catch it, game over. But you just kick an extra point, and now you're up by 8. They missed it, so it makes things a little easier, although Steven Gostkowski had missed a kick from roughly extra point range before. You just like that Romeo is not playing it by the book, David Johnson gets a touchdown here, running hard. Yeah. David Johnson keeps doing enough that you consider him every week, but odd enough that you're excited to have him in your lineup, and he doesn't do enough that you're automatically playing him. You are automatically playing Will Fuller. You are automatically playing Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks had a slow start in this game and then just racked up short catches. You can see the chemistry there. More of the role you expected maybe from Randall Cobb, who at least did get a diving touchdown in this one. No Jordan Akins, and it's Darren Fells. Whew. And defenses just forget about him. He's left alone. So when Jordan Akins is able to come back, you like his potential, but it's not potential with Fells. It's production, and it's now a couple weeks in a row. Again, going to Green Bay next week. Will there be a fire sale as the trade deadline comes up? You feel for Deshaun Watson, but in some ways, even though they're 1-5, there's been progress in the organization this year.
Yeah, progress with the old man, Romeo, just rolling the dice, right? I got nothing to lose. Don't mind that. Titans side, don't mind talking about Ryan Tannehill just balling out. 30 for 41, 364, 4 touchdowns, 1 INT. And Derrick Henry, my God, locomotive, freight train is an insult to locomotives and freight trains because he's better. An earth mover, world mover, planet mover. Derrick Henry, 22 for 212, 2 touchdowns on the day. Also a couple catches, 52 yards. The touchdowns go like this. Anthony Firkser, 8 for 113 and a touch. So Jonnu Smith. Jonnu. Adam Humphrey, 6 for 64 and a touch. A.J. Brown, 5 for 56 and 2 touchdowns to Bloom. I'm so glad that they kept that last one because it's a bang, bang, toe tap thing. And don't take those type of plays away from us. Great effort, great play from A.J. Brown, and great performance from the Titans, who almost fumbled this thing away. They almost lost it. But they hold on. They win in overtime.
Yeah, the ref should not be deciding the game. I let the players decide it. That amazing comeback. Amazing comeback by the Texans first, then the Titans finish it in overtime. It's a lot to sort through here. First of all, now that everybody fully has embraced Russell Wilson as one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks in the game, now it's time for everyone to say every week, Ryan Tannehill's better than you think. Ryan Tannehill's so good. And you can't tell the story of Ryan Tannehill without Adam Gase, and you can't tell the story of Ryan Tannehill without Arthur Smith. And
the heroes are only good as their villains. Right?
That's true. That's absolutely true. But Arthur Smith, you can really see it as much as any quarterback in the league. Tannehill really understands the play design. He understands the why of the play, and he's in the play. And when he delivers the ball, do you see Ryan Tannehill throw the ball with any hesitation or lack of full intent in the game? And he's just executing. Time after time after time after time, he is executing. It didn't matter who he was throwing to. It didn't matter. It could be Firkser Berserker. And it was Jonas Smith going out with an ankle injury early. So Harvard guys, we love our Harvard guys, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Firkser with a big game. We'll talk about him on the waiver wire show. A.J. Brown with the 2 touchdowns. Adam Humphries back from the COVID list gets a touchdown. Even got a 2-point conversion to Nick Westbrook, Kane or something like that. Everybody, if you were on the rock, Cameron Batson makes a catch. Everybody contributing here. And we see it a lot when a quarterback can go that deep and utilize all of the players, all the options and plays, then you know that they've really mastered this offense. Good Halloween costume. It'll be a surprise. I don't think we're on Halloween. I think we're on
We're on the Thursday before. Halloween's a Saturday.
Yeah, so the Thursday before. So put that aside. Thursday before, right? I know what Derrick Henry's costume should be. The Grim Reaper. I mean, put him in, give him that sickle and that hood. My, oh my. Somebody must have put his calendar on December, and he woke up this morning thinking, oh, it's December. I mean, Derrick Henry, the 94-yard touchdown run, the touchdown run to finish the game, the catch and run to set that up. It is just inevitable. Death, taxes, and Derrick Henry, man. I mean, wow. And I see sometimes football is simple, or it's simple when you have guys like Derrick Henry, and they don't come along. This is everything we've wanted, say, like Brandon Jacobs to be, Or, I mean, it's fully realized what he can do, and it is that commitment, and he's the difference in the game. As great as Ryan Tannehill was, it was the fact that, the intensity of having to tackle Derrick Henry in the first quarter, you can't bring the same intensity in the fourth quarter, but he still brings the same intensity. I don't know how you defend that. I don't know what you do about that. Steelers have to do that. Next week, undefeated against undefeated. Undefeated against undefeated in week 7 does not happen very often. Maybe all this COVID stuff and the delays and everything like that was just the universe making sure that this game got put on the pedestal that it deserved.
You know what guys who have to tackle Derrick Henry say?
Ouch. Yeah.
The bad man planted Baxter. The bad man.
By the way, his nickname is Shaka. One of his nicknames is Shaka.
Oh, I love that.
Because his parents, when he was conceived, were like 15 and 16. He was a shocker.
Shaka. All right. 20-19. Giants win over Washington. I don't know if that's a shocker, but whatever. They're 1-5, both of these teams. Kyle Allen, he's scrappy and not really good. 31-42, 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. Terry McLaurin goes 7 for 74. You'll take that in PPR leagues. Logan Thomas, 3 for 42 and a touchdown. There you go. Cam Sims, 1 for 22 and a touchdown. Nobody started him. Dontrell Inman, 5 for 45. J.D. McKissick, 8 for 41. Antonio Gibson, 9 for 30. And then 4 for 25 as a receiver. So they're still trying to figure that out and, trying to work their way to Trevor Lawrence. I think everyone's going after Trevor Lawrence when he had 5 touchdowns in the first quarter or whatever it was against Georgia Tech.
Yeah. Like I said, at least Kyle Allen gives them a chance to win. Decisively after watching Alex Smith and then watching Kyle Allen, he gives them a chance to win, at least against teams like the Giants. And then you see Riverboat Ron going for 2 at the end. I don't know. I would think you had a better play or something. You're going to go for it. It's okay. I'll tell you what's not shocking, Cecil. This was just a bad game.
Yeah.
This was not a game decided by players rising to the occasion and digging down deep. This was who made fewer lethal mistakes. You did see Allen cough up Kyler Fackrell sack fumble that Tay Crowder took to the house. You did see 2 nice Kyle Allen throws to the corner of the end zone. Cam Sims and Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas finally does something. Not that we're going to necessarily go back to him, but maybe against Dallas next week. J.D. McKissick won't go away. So that's maybe the biggest fantasy headline here is that Antonio Gibson and all the physical ability that he offers, J.D. McKissick is still a solid, productive football player, and he was being used a lot. And in PPR leagues, he's getting into that James White territory, maybe not touchdown possibilities like White, but the work in the backfield every week to be a flex play or emergency back too. And we have had a lot of emergencies already this year. Terry McLaurin did okay in a tough matchup. James Bradbury did still get an interception to set up a touchdown. And, again, Washington in that derby and Dallas next week, Cowboys and football team. We can't say that anymore, Cease.
Yeah, Cowboys and football team. There we go. I always played that when I was a kid growing up. Giants side, Daniel Jones, 112, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. This is just boring. Darius Slayton, 2 for 41, a touchdown. Wow. Evan Ingram, 2 for 30, whatever. Daniel Jones led the way on the ground with 74 rushing yards. Devontae Freeman, 18 for 61. So here you go. Also a catch for -4 yards. So probably half PPR. It's a wash basically. Yeah, so, exactly. Anyway, let's get through this game. So we can
Daniel Jones has an okay fantasy result, but you can see it's a Jason Garrett passing game. Hey. So I mean, Dayton you see the beautiful ball tracking, and Daniel Jones does throw a good deep ball to him, and you get a touchdown, and he gets a little banged up late, and he comes back in the game. It's a flatlining passing game. And we get to watch another NFC East battle on Thursday night. Cecil, Philadelphia Giants battling to see which team we say, well, Dallas just can't lose to that team, and they can win the division.
Just do it. Just do it when you're talking Ravens and Eagles. And this is one of those ones, kind of like Titans and Texans, Bloom, where you're like, it's going to go like we thought, and it's 14-0 and the 17-0 at halftime. You're like, yep. And then Philly fights back, and you're like, oh, wait a second. And why is Baltimore letting them fight back? But Baltimore wins 30-28, the final score. They're 5-1. Philadelphia is 1-4-1. Lamar Jackson goes 16-27, 186 yards, 1 touchdown, no INTs, 9 for 108, and 1 rushing touchdown for Lamar. Hollywood Brown, 4 for 57. Nick Boyle, which that play made me go, oh, why can that be Mandrew? 3 for 33 and a touch. Mark Andrews, 2 for 21. That's it. So he's going to have some weeks like this. We've seen this once before already this year. And then he'll bounce back and he'll be fine. But you take it on the chin this week. J.K. Dobbins just not doing as much as he could. 9 for 28. Gus Edwards gets a rushing touchdown. Mark Ingram gets 5 for 20. So this game was really bizarre, Bloom, because at first it was like, yep, Philadelphia's going to get their ass kicked. And then it was like, oh, is Philadelphia going to win? And then what's that say about Baltimore? Philadelphia does win, but they didn't. So that's good. But what does that say? And what do you think?
Right. This was one, I mean, for fantasy, it was another one of these 2 easy wins for the Ravens. And that's why Marquise Brown didn't do much. That's why Mark Andrews didn't do much. Like you said, Nick Boyle getting the touchdown. Mark Ingram goes down with an ankle injury. Before you get too excited, and we shouldn't get excited at injuries, But if you have Gus Edwards, you did get a touchdown, but he didn't get much going. J.K. Dobbins, as you said, he didn't get much going. You can see Dobbins has a lot of juice. It just hasn't come together in a fantasy-worthy game since week 1 when he got short touchdowns. He didn't need to have juice to get those. And you really did feel Baltimore just let up in this game. For a while, it took, I think, well into the second quarter for the Eagles just to have a first down. So Baltimore let up, even as the Eagles tightened up a little bit. Lamar Jackson had a long touchdown run, which helped him have a good fantasy result for the first time in a while. But then Baltimore still letting up at the end. And again, the story with Baltimore as they go into their bye, okay, you got to win. Baltimore is the very essence of beating the teams you're supposed to beat. So they are 5-1. That one being Kansas City, and they come right out of the bye in week 8 and face Pittsburgh, Indy, New England, Tennessee, Pittsburgh again. So we're going to learn a lot more about this team. We're going to see if Lamar Jackson can tighten the screws a little bit, if this team can. Even the defense at the end let up, and hey, Cease, the Eagles, if you have enough fight to make it a game in the fourth quarter when you're getting blown out, that means you're a contender in the NFC East.
Right. That means it's a win. Hey, Carson Wentz, 213 yards, 2 touchdowns, no INTs. Travis Fulgham, 6 for 75 and 1 touchdown. How many Old Dominion guys are we going to talk about,
right?
Dude? Like, I didn't bring up Jeremy Cox in the Broncos game, but he's another Old Dominion guy that's actually on an active roster. So, okay, Old Dominion everywhere. Fulgham leading the way again there. John Hightower catch for 50 yards. Nobody started him. Jason Kroom, speaking of nobody started, had the other receiving touchdown here. Miles Sanders, 9 for 118. The big 74-yard run. Carson Wentz, by the way, with a rushing touchdown. Jalen Hurts out there running the rock. Like, okay, interesting way that they fought back, but outside of Fulgham and Sanders, Bloom, Zach Ertz 4 for 33, right? This is a last stand for Zach Ertz this week. Well, he didn't do anything.
Right. Yeah, lots of injuries. It's an Eagles game, right? So what are some of the things we're going to see as a motif here? Injuries. Carson Wentz getting the stuffing knocked out of him. And a loss. Look, poor Carson Wentz. See, you hear it in the crowd sometimes, right? Like, oh. Or just like whenever we all gathered around the schoolyard in the back, like 3 o'clock to be a fight, and you knew it was a mismatch fight, and you saw that kid that was just getting, his nose was bloody, his eye was over his eyebrow already, but he still keeps fighting, That was the Eagles in this one. I mean, they were getting bloodied, but they didn't give up, and they had a chance at the end of this game. They ran an option. Who do you think your quarterback is running an option run on the play to tie the game? And remember, there was actually a Hail Mary that Travis Fulgham almost brought in, that then it turned into an interception, but actually was roughing the passer penalty, and it gave them a chance at the end of the first half to get a freebie field goal. And if they made that field goal, maybe the game is a little bit different. Ultimate Dominion, by the way, back in the day, I think was a women's basketball power, before UConn, and they had cool uniforms too. Yeah, Travis, you got a garbage time touchdown from him, basically. Although, again, garbage time turned into actual, points, fantasy points, including for Carson Wentz. Miles Sanders leaves with a knee injury. And what do we have in this game? Miles Sanders breaks into the open field again. JJ Arcega-Whiteside blocking downfield for him again. But this time, the ball gets stripped inside the 5, and there's Arcega-Whiteside to pounce on it. That was the first touchdown of the day for the Eagles, I believe. Ertz leaves with a foot injury. So good luck, Richard Rodgers. That's the thing, right? I mean, it's the end of week 6. And Travis Fulgham, who was a non-factor, okay, maybe they'll get Deshaun Jackson back next week. We'll see about Alshon Jeffrey. We'll see when Dallas Goedert comes back. But, I mean, if Miles Sanders is out, phew. But the thing is, again, you look at the Eagles, and I would guess that mathematically they still control their own destiny, kind of. I mean, they played Dallas twice. They still play the Giants twice. They did lose that opener to Washington. That tie to Cincinnati, playing for the tie maybe will look wise. You feel for this team because they really are summing up all the effort that they have, but they're so outgunned. That will not be the case on Thursday night when they face the Giants.
Okay, what happened? Fantasy GMs are saying with Atlanta and Minnesota, 40 burger, 40-23. Falcons, their first win of the year. How do they fight without this is how they fight. Matt Ryan, 371, 4 touchdowns on the day. Julio Jones. You thought AJ Green was back. Julio's like, hold my energy drink. 8 for 137 and 2 touchdowns. Calvin Ridley, 6 for 61 and a touchdown. Hayden Hurst, 4 for 57 and a touchdown. And Russell Gage, 4 for 65 on the day. Todd Gurley, 20 for 47 and then 3 for 20 as a receiver. Hey, this was big. This was huge and made Vikings fans uncomfortable. Bloom, more uncomfortable than Todd Gurley reading that line in the NFL's voting commercial, which I saw and laughed about. But anyway, let's talk about these Falcons and what they got done.
Yeah, fire the coach, little bounce, little spring in your step. A lot of spring in Julio Jones' step, even though he maybe bird dogged us a little bit with the missed practices and then a limited practice, not on the injury report. That was the operative piece of information here is he begins it and he ends it. He's looking spry on his touchdown, and then he gets a touchdown. The second one on 4th down when he kind of sneaks behind the defense. A game that really put it away, that play. And that's our Matt Ryan against a bad defense with Julio Jones back. That's the kind of result we look for from Matt Ryan. Again, he's going to face Detroit next week. So we're liking Ryan. It really gets a touchdown. Hurst's touchdown came in garbage time. They all count the same. So don't necessarily think that this is redemption for Hurst or he's back in our circle of trust. Who was in our circle of trust coming into this one and got the game script he needed but didn't put up the points was Todd Gurley. Again, against Detroit next week, we'll probably go back to the well here. Brian Hill, still not quite a committee, but he's not just coming in to get cleanup work either. He had a fumble in this one. But again, Atlanta, Detroit next week. Detroit pulled a 3-3, or Falcons have a winning streak.
Vikings have what? They have Zimmer under contract for a long time.
Exactly.
Good luck. They have Kirk Cousins under contract. Good thing they got that Cousins-Zimmer combination. It's worked out so well for him. The rings abound. 343, 3 touchdowns, 3 INTs for Kirk Cousins. Justin Jefferson, 9 for 166, 2 touchdowns. Adam Thielen, 3 for 51 and a touchdown. Irv Smith, 4 for 55 in this contest. Alexander Madison, 10 for 26. That's it. 1 for 4 as a receiver. So this was a rough day. Outside of your Justin Jefferson fantasy GMs, this was a rough day for Vikings fans, rough day for people. I got Alexander Madison. You got nothing today.
Yeah, this is a game, Cease, where if you're Rick Spielman, you're looking at Mike Zimmer, you're looking at Kirk Cousins, you're looking at the blueprint of this team, and you're saying this isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
This isn't going anywhere. And can Mike Zimmer be imaginative enough to be part of an effort to turn a cruise ship around, to really change the direction of a franchise? I don't know. I think that it's clear at this point that getting the extra years tacked on for Kirk Cousins, not that you can't trade Kirk Cousins. Look, if you can trade Nick Foles, you can trade Kirk Cousins. That's what they need to do, though. The Mike Zimmer years, I mean, I think at this point you want a new direction for this franchise. You want the assets you can sell off that are in decline. I mean, not in decline truly, but the point is you're looking at 2022. You're looking at 2023, and you're saying who's going to be around for that? And that's the focus of this franchise right now after a loss like this. Even though they go to Seattle last week, they play Seattle straight up. And again, how different does this team come into this week if they had beaten Seattle? I don't know. Kirk Cousins, just another miserable day. He did put up the fantasy numbers by the time it was said and done because of garbage time, but just a miserable day decision-making wise. Alexander went down with this one because they're playing from behind the whole game, but you did see Justin Jefferson looking good, and one of his touchdowns was before garbage time. He looks like he's the real deal. Irv Smith creeping into fantasy relevance. Now, going into a bye, I don't know how excited you are to pick up Irv Smith if you have tight end problems, but there's something there. Adam Thielen, another garbage time touchdown. Mike Boone gets in and gets stuffed at the goal line on 4th down. There's your Boone cameo. Perfect. In this one, Minnesota gets a bye to think about this loss.
Yes, to think about the final game in part 1 of the Week 6 recap. Bears and Panthers, 23-16. It's those Bears, those feisty Bears, 5-1 now. And Nick Foles, 198 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. Allen Robinson, 5 for 53. And then the 1 touchdown, Cole Kmet, 2 for 20 and a touchdown. Just after this week, in the Newswire, somebody from, I don't know, The Athletic or something wrote like, Cole Kmet is struggling. Well, yeah, it's a rookie tight end, of course. Learning behind Jimmy Graham, 5 for 34. Darnell Mooney, 3 for 36. So just not a lot here. David Montgomery, 19 for 58. Nick Foles, by the way, with a rushing touchdown. And David Montgomery gets 4 for 39 as a receiver. But it's enough to win, Bloom. Kind of run the ball, kind of. 25 carries commitment, and then 39 passing attempts for Foles. That's too many. But you play enough defense to win.
When they do, Cease, they're 5-1. The Bears are 5-1. Nick Foles is a winner. He did enough in this game. And I'm just telling you, I don't know if you look at the Bears schedule, Cease. Going to face the Rams next week, then New Orleans, going to face Tennessee, maybe the toughest game they have left, except for the games against Green Bay, but division teams, all bets are off. Minnesota, they played Detroit, again, division. Houston, Jacksonville. This is a playoff team. I mean, this is a team that, hey, Carolina was tied for first place coming into this game. Nick Foles had 1 really bad interception. Also had a steep touchdown. David Montgomery couldn't finish at the goal line and did enough, including the touchdown pass to Cole Kmet. At least Jimmy Graham still got enough catches that, it wasn't a total loss if you played Jimmy Graham, but that complicates things a little bit. Allen Robinson. And look, they went to Allen Robinson on 3rd down and 2 when it was one of those situations where maybe you get the first down, and if you don't, at least you take a timeout away from a team that needs a tying touchdown drive. And they threw the ball to Allen Robinson. It didn't work. So they opened the door, just like they did against the Giants earlier this year. I mean, they opened the door for a possible comeback, even though the football gods were trying to hand them a win. But they still get that win. Not an exciting offense here. And not a defense that did enough, but still gave Carolina some shots. Here's the theme this year, Cease. Is this a good team? I don't know. Are the Rams going to watch them tonight? Are they a good team? I don't know. After next week, I may still not know, but I know the Bears will still have a winning record.
But now adding that 7th playoff spot, hey, you're good enough.
Yeah.
Hey, Panthers side, love Teddy, bad day. 2 picks, 216 on the day. DJ Moore, 5 for 93. Robbie Anderson, 4 for 77. There's Virginia State's Trenton Cannon, 2 for 15. Nobody has him. Okay, nothing else. Mike Davis, 18 for 52 and a rushing touchdown. So that helps you out if you started Davis, but wasn't a lot here. Couldn't get a lot going except for those 10 fourth quarter points.
Yeah, it was there. I mean, it was there for them to come back at the end, but Teddy just turned into Teddy turnover. And this one, Mike Davis also had a fumble. Davis wasn't as involved in the passing game, so hopefully this wasn't the week you decided to finally put him in a DFS. And let's give some credit to the Bears defense. The Bears defense has not been an easy out. I mean, Atlanta kind of let up when they got up big on them, but Detroit did too. So I guess I shouldn't laud them too much, but certainly they frustrated Carolina. Also frustrating if you play DJ Moore. Got a good result, but he dropped a potential touchdown pass. He also drew a pass interference without Curtis Samuel, and if you're really excited about him, you should have been. Just a few plays that were there didn't come through, or it could have been a massive day for DJ Moore. And Carolina just has to pick it up. I mean, we're watching Tampa Bay right now, having at least a good half against Green Bay, but the NFC South's still wide open. They play Carolina against New Orleans next week. They can beat New Orleans. They should still feel like they can have claimed this division, even though they take this another bitter home loss.
A bitter home loss, that is for sure. That is a wrap for part 1 of the Week 6 recap. What do we got? 2 games this afternoon?
Yeah, if I would call the Jets Dolphins more of an exhibition.
Okay, so we have an exhibition and a real game that's not much of a game right now that we will recap. That'll be like a 15-minute show, Bloom.
Yeah, like an encore. This is the concert.
Right?
Freebird. All right, we'll come back and do Freebird.
Audible. Okay, we'll come out. We'll wait till the lights start flashing. Anyway, don't go anywhere. We'll be back a little bit later this afternoon with part 2 to wrap up week 6's recap. Appreciate everyone out there. Do all those YouTube things, like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid. He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We're the Audible. Be back in a bit. Stay frosty.